because it's not about me. That's why, because, I was raised to understand that this isn't about you. And so that's one of the reasons I joined the Navy. I dropped out of school my senior year in college at the University of Arizona, a couple miles down the road, to join the Navy and try and become a SEAL, because I knew it wasn't about me. And because I knew that if I wanted to see others enjoy this, what I would consider a blessing to live in the United States of America, I knew that it didn't just come freely. I mean, I know we say that, and we say it ad nauseum. We say freedom isn't free. And it's become so sloganized that I think it's lost a lot of its meaning, but there's a lot of truth to that.
These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. The Six Ranch Podcast is brought to you by Sig Sauer. SIG is a leading provider and manufacturer of firearms, electro-optics, ammunition, air guns, and suppressors. For over 250 years, Sig Sauer Inc. has evolved and thrived by blending American ingenuity, German engineering, and Swiss precision. Today, Sig Sauer is synonymous with industry-leading quality and innovation, which has made it the brand of choice amongst the U.S. military, the global defense community, law enforcement, competitive shooters, hunters, and responsible citizens. Sig Sauer is also a premier provider of elite firearms instruction and tactical training at the Sig Sauer Academy located in New Hampshire. For more information about Sig Sauer and its complete line of products, visit sigsauer.com.
Eli, you and I had a really interesting conversation this spring at that elite hunter training forum in Montana. And you were telling me about when you came into Chris Kyle's SEAL team and kind of how rough they were on the new guys. And it wasn't necessarily hazing, but it was definitely holding to an exceptionally high standard and not necessarily treating you very well. And I asked you, once you were in a leadership role there, did you treat the new guys like that? Do you remember what your response was?
I don't remember exactly what my response was, but I think I probably, told you exactly what I tell most people. As soon as I had the opportunity to, make change and be one of the older guys that could affect culture, I remember, saying, hey, let's scrap that. Let's make sure that, we spend our time teaching these guys the little that we knew, because we want them to be as effective as possible in war. And that's not to say that we don't want our new guys and the guys coming into the organization to be respectful or to pay their dues, because we absolutely did. And I think that that's really important. And I think that makes you appreciate when you become a leader, if you've had to, start from the bottom and work your way up. But yeah, the decision was made pretty early on. Hey, we're not going to do something just because that's how we were raised. We're going to do what we think is right. We're going to do what we think makes us the best fighting unit. And we want brotherhood. We want cohesion. And, that wasn't always the case in platoons prior. And, I think that so much of it is just having strong enough leaders who are willing to say, hey, look, that might have been, what we did yesterday, but just because it was what we did yesterday doesn't mean it's, it's the best way to go about it. So let's be open and willing to change, try new things. And, as a kid, I was raised in a Christian home, and my parents used to teach me all the time about the golden rule. And that is, do unto others what you would have to do, and treat people the way you want to be treated. And so whether you're in a leadership role, whether you're the CEO or the janitor, it doesn't matter. I'm going to treat that individual the way I want to be treated, because I believe that we are all created in God's image. And that means we all have intrinsic value. And I think we need to treat people that way.
I agree, man. But I can't really describe to people how difficult it is to make that change in a military unit, to not lead in the way that you were led. That takes not only courage, but creativity. And it takes knowing who you are as a person to understand that, hey, I could do this. I could lead in the same way that I was led. But in order to do that, that means I have to be a different person from who I actually am. And if you can be authentic to yourself, you can be more effective as a leader, point blank.
Yep.
And it takes an incredible amount of courage to do that. So what you told me in Montana, which cracked me up, because you are a Navy SEAL, you're a sniper in the SEALs, you're a hard man in every way that matters. And you said, no, man, I was more of a hugger. I didn't like getting treated like that. And for you to describe yourself that way is completely honest, because every time I see you, first order of business is a hug. And
that's right.
And that's just who you are. And I think that makes you better. That makes you more effective. And I don't know, it got me very interested in who you are as a leader, just that one story. And that's what I want to get into today. And Marine Corps leadership and naval leadership on paper is very similar. I actually haven't had the opportunity to talk with people in the Navy very much about maybe some of the nuances and differences. And, the job of a tanker in the Marine Corps is different from that of a SEAL in the Navy or really any other profession within the Department of Defense.
Right.
So did you operate with the leadership traits and principles as a guiding foundation?
Well, I think that you probably, as an officer, you probably got, a lot more, I would say, institutional leadership training than I did. I think most of the leadership training that I got was OJT, on the job. I started out as an enlisted guy in the Navy, and by the time I left the Navy, I was an E6. So that's like barely middle management, right? However, like I said, I got most of my leadership experience watching leaders that I knew and respected, and trying to borrow from them some of their, some of the things I saw that worked, some of the things that I saw that I appreciated and liked, and then trying to scrap and avoid some of the things I saw them doing poorly and that weren't working, weren't effective. And so most of my stuff was OJT, but I'm grateful for it. And I tried to be a sponge and pick it up. And then, once I got out of the military, I found that a lot of what I witnessed and watched and tried to absorb really helped in the business world as well.
In what ways?
Well, I think that I noticed with some of the leaders that I had, if you knew that they didn't care, like if you mentioned, hey, every time I see Eli, order number one, give this dude a hug, because I love people. I love you too, James, even though you're a Marine and I'm in the tank. But it's like people gravitate towards love. They just do. All of us want to be loved. And even the hardest guys out there, they want to be loved. They want to be respected. And I think it's just something that the human heart longs for. And so if watching some of the leaders I had, when you knew that they, not only cared about their guys, but they loved their guys and they would do anything for their guys, especially when it cost them, the sled dogs would follow those guys into hell and back. They would go anywhere for them. And so that was one of the things that I just noticed. And, I wanted to replicate and I wanted to become as a leader, was somebody that didn't just, hey, do this, do that. I'm the leader, do what I tell you to do. But, build that bond, through trust, respect, and love, to where when an order or, hey, we're going this direction and I need you guys to just trust me and go, there's not a lot, there doesn't need to be a board meeting. There doesn't need to be a whole bunch of questions. They just know that, hey, Eli's not making this decision or making this call because he hasn't thought this through. And there has, that level of trust never materializes, in my opinion, if there's no genuine love and, just affection for the people that you mean to lead.
That was a real difficulty for me. And I guess academically, what you're talking about would fall under the leadership principle: know your Marines and look out for their welfare. Sailors,
Right.
whatever business you're in, know your people and look out for their welfare. The situation that I was in, running a tank platoon remotely, autonomously in my own AO in Afghanistan, we're living in the same tent together. If we had a tent, my crew on my tank, we were within inches of each other, inches inside this little tiny vehicle. Big vehicle, but small space for humans on the inside of it. And I had to, as an officer, maintain some distance, right? Because you can't have the same relationship between officer and enlisted as you do with officer and officer, or enlisted and enlisted. But I freaking loved my dudes so much. And I knew everything that I could know about them, right? I knew their sports teams. I know how much sleep they needed. I knew, what kind of food they liked. I knew as much as I could about them. Okay. If they spent too much money on a vacuum cleaner, I knew about that. Okay. Everything that I could possibly know. And through knowing them, my affection for them and how much I cared about them grew to an amount that almost exceeded my capacity to maintain that distance that is a legal requirement within the Marines and the Navy.
Yeah.
And gosh, that was an extremely difficult situation for me. And then within that leadership role, and within many leadership roles, there's a loneliness that comes with that. And that loneliness can eat at your courage and fatigue you to levels that most people never experience in their lives. How do you deal with that type of fatigue?
Oh man, that's a good one. I think it comes down to me it comes down to expectation management, and just with so many things that I do, I want to make sure that my expectations are realistic, and I understand, even like I'm here at my company right now, Bottle Breacher, and on the other side of the wall, I've got a CB and 2 Army guys, that are working, and I love those dudes. But I know exactly what you're talking about. There are times where I have to, say, hey, this is what I want done, and I need you guys to do it. And I don't expect to be best friends with these guys because of that necessary separation at times. However, I try to make sure that these guys know that I have an open door policy, and, know that they can come into my office at any time. If they're dealing with something tough, if they need to pray about something, I'm happy to, just get into it with them, because I tend to believe that the best leaders put people over projects. And I do that, but I do it with expectation management, knowing that, hey, there has to be a little bit of a separation. And I think the guys understand it. They get it. They've been in enough environments, and it goes back to what I was saying. If people know that you genuinely care, if they know you genuinely care, they get that, and they'll follow you to hell and back. And it takes work. Sometimes you got to blow off a meeting because somebody's struggling at home. Sometimes you got to blow off the phone call. Sometimes you got to blow off even, something that's important to you, like maybe your workout, to take time out to be there for, one of your guys, one of the people that you want to lead. But I think if you do it and your people know that you genuinely care and that you're authentic, they'll follow you to hell and back. And they also know that there are times where, James or Eli, can't be a part of something and has to separate themselves because they have to, remain the leader. And so I think it's just expectation management going into it, and understanding that, hey, there are times I wish we were closer. I wish we could hang out more, but you guys know the deal, man. I have to be really careful about how close I get to people. if I want to continue to, run this operation effectively.
So you come from a small unit leadership background in the SEALs.
Yep.
And then you created a very successful business with
Yep.
some innovative and interesting products, which, we'll link to. Okay. I think Bottle Breacher is pretty badass. And now you're starting to expand into a whole different type of leadership. But I feel like it's still small unit leadership principles that are going to carry you through. So for those who don't know, Eli's running for Congress and he's going to win. And I'm so excited about it. It like makes me wish that I was part of your district, because I think you're going to do wonderful things for those people. But now you're going to be representing people that you don't know. And you're going to have to represent people who have ideological positions that are, in diabolical opposition to your own. So how do you represent such a diverse group of people as what you're going to be stepping into once you win as a congressman?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think that you need to know what obviously you need to know what your policies are, but you need to try and treat everybody, especially the ones that are diabolically opposed, as human beings. And you need to try and connect with them on a level of humanity. And it goes back to, I talked about expectation management. I have expectation management going into this, where I know I'm going to get death threats. I know there are going to be people that hate me, say nasty things about me, write nasty articles about me. And because my expectation management is such, when it happens, I'm going to do everything I can to let it roll off my back, even though it might hurt. And when I have those conversations as well with people, or when I'm talking to a group that I know, doesn't see the world the way I do and doesn't align with my policies, I'm going to acknowledge those things. I'm not going to try and avoid them or act like they're not there. Like, I had a meeting with a guy yesterday, and I knew for a fact him and I didn't see eye to eye on policy. Now, he wasn't diabolically opposed. What separated us was maybe 20 degrees. And, I acknowledged it right up front, and I tried to find, common ground with him. And I think that, I think that that's something that I'll always try and do, whether it's possible or not, is to, find something that we have in common. And, let's connect there and see if we can, find some more common ground. And if we can't, that's a real possibility. And my expectations are set accordingly, but I'm always going to try and find common ground with people. And, I'm always going to try and be a man of integrity and lead in that manner. And I hope that resonates with people.
And why wouldn't it? I mean, hearing that, I have a hard time imagining somebody who's like, well, I don't want that guy. It seems like a layup to have somebody that's a real human with real experience that they can talk to. Even if they disagree with them, they know coming into the conversation that you're going to find something that you can agree on. And then you're going to figure out what it is about the disagreement that causes the separation, right? And then, okay, how can I help you achieve your success? And how can I represent everybody else? Really difficult thing to do.
Yeah, it is a really difficult thing to do. And like I said, because I'm big on expectation management, I don't expect to be able to win over everybody. And that old saying from a long time ago, you can please all the people some of the people all the time, but you can't please all the people all the time. That's probably as true in politics as it is anywhere else. And so, being open and willing to talk to anybody, but knowing that there's always going to be, a certain percentage, and probably in 2021, almost 50% of people that aren't going to see things the way that I see them. It's not something that I welcome or love, but it's just a reality. And it's something that if you get into this world, you have to be willing to accept, and you have to look for opportunities to break through. But you have to be willing to walk away from any conversation, any meeting, knowing that it could go poorly. Because if you're, a lot of people aren't willing anymore to say, hey, let's just agree to disagree, right? Well, it's like, I'm okay with sometimes saying, hey, you know what, we're just going to have to agree to disagree on this one, and walk away. And so it goes back to the expectation management thing for me, and, being willing to, have disagreements with folks, and also, be slandered and, called names and stuff like that. Because for me, it's the same thing for me is why probably you and I joined the military. We wanted to serve something bigger than ourselves. And we thought we could do something about it. And so that's why I'm going into this. And I know my stuff stinks. I know I'm not perfect. I know that there's so many people out there in so many areas, that are subject matter experts where I don't know anything. I know my knowledge is limited, but I do believe that if you're humble and you're willing to surround yourself with smarter people, and you're willing to hear people out, and you're willing to be challenged as a leader, and you're willing, to be confronted, and even open to changing your mind if somebody can present, a better way to do things. I think if you're willing to do that and you have courage and character, I still think you can get things done. And that's one of the reasons that I'm going into this.
Changing your mind is an incredibly difficult task. And my friend Cody Rich taught me an interesting technique for it. And he said that when he feels very strongly about something, he likes to check himself by thinking, what would have to be true for me to believe the opposite of what I do now? And understanding things in opposites is a really good way to actually understand the totality of the circumstance. There was a famous horse trainer that lived here, and he was like the first of the horse whisperers, okay, which is, a made up romantic term, of course. But this guy was a horse trainer, and he was a cowboy. His name was Tom Dorrance, and he became a legend and changed the way the horses were trained forever. His brother Bill was very much the same way with cattle. He was very, very good with cattle, exceptionally good with horses as well. But one of the things that Bill said is, if you're trying to move a cow or something like that, and it's not going well, it's not going how you want it to, try doing the exact opposite as hard as you can. And I found that principle and that philosophy works really well with all kinds of problems that you just seem stuck against. Okay, maybe you're doing the exact wrong thing. So let's try the exact opposite. Maybe that works. But if nothing else, it'll help you understand it that much better. But just having it in your mind and in your heart that you're willing to change your mind, if the information changes, that's wonderful.
Yeah. And I think that's why I'm grateful. I'm grateful to come from the special operations community. And I'm also grateful to come from the entrepreneurial world as well, because in both of those worlds, it doesn't matter what your intentions are. All that really matters is what results you're able to yield, right? And in special operations, if something wasn't working, we had to quickly adapt. We had to be very flexible. In unconventional warfare, I mean, the theme is right there in the title. You have to be willing to be unconventional. Think outside the box. If something's not working, quickly try something else, and repeat until you find something that works, something that moves the needle. And I think that I'm so grateful, because I know I'm going into just a juggernaut of an institution, the federal government. I think that you're going to go into the federal government, even as a congressman, and quickly make change, you're a fool. In my opinion, you're a fool. Now, if you're willing to go in, keep your mouth shut, keep your head on a swivel, learn as much as you can, as quickly as you can, and start building a coalition or some alliances, and, start, trying new things, seeing if you can put your shoulder to the wheel and affect a small change. And it goes back to expectation management. If you're willing to do that, I think you can make some things happen. But I get so tired of seeing these folks that, and I know that people are tired of them too, with, their stump speeches and their rah, 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 I'm going to go in there and I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. It's like, I think that you need to be more realistic in your expectation as a leader, what you're going to be able to get done, but also you need to set the people that you're trying to lead. You need to set those expectations accordingly as well. And, that's something I don't see a lot. And I think we've trained ourselves, especially with politicians, to, we almost like gravitate towards these bombastic individuals that promise you the world and then 2 years later, you're completely let down and frustrated and saying, well, you said this, that, and this, and I believed you. Well, who's the fool, right? It's like, if you think that you're going to sin, and I'm not trying to undermine the importance of, elected officials. What I'm talking about is that this is a huge generational, quagmire, a swamp, if you will. It's very hard to affect change. And it was actually designed that way, with checks and balances, to where not one, branch of government could just steamroll. And I mean, our founding fathers wanted there to be fights. They wanted there to be gridlock, so that, you couldn't just take this thing off its tracks quickly. But I think going back to something you said earlier, James, I think that we need more men and women with, courage and character, who aren't swayed by the opulence and the title and the prestige that might come with, the position. And that's, as a younger man, I probably would have been. And as I've gotten older and I've had a little bit of success under my belt, and, even, acquired a little bit of money, I've realized that none of that stuff leads to fulfillment anyway, and this life ain't about you. And if you don't understand that, you're never going to be able to be a good, servant of the people. You're never going to be able to be a good leader either, because I think selfishly, most of us tend to try and make things about ourselves. And I think that's what, I see when I look at the political landscape, and people that say that they're going to fight for us constantly let us down. And it turns out most of the time they end up fighting for themselves and their own career and their own pocketbook. And, it's just like, that was one of the reasons I said, hey, I can keep complaining about this, or I can throw my hat in the ring and try and do something about it. But anyway, I know I'm, ranting there, but, that's, I think we need more people that understand that.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, man. I was up for Fish and Wildlife Commission a few years ago, and people came at me the same way that they're going to come at you. They try to find any aspect that they can twist about your character and say, this is why this person is bad. And I ended up talking to another commissioner, and he said, look, even if you get in, you're not going to be able to turn the ship around. You may not even be able to move it in the right direction, but right, you might be able to keep it from getting worse. And I feel like that is a realistic expectation. And eventually, if you keep it from not getting worse, you might be able to move it towards getting better a little bit. And that is also realistic and hopeful. Unfortunately, that's the best we can hope for, is that we can get incrementally a little bit better. And over time, we can get back on track to, a time where people can actually see how much they have in common in their beliefs. And it doesn't turn into this 50-50 split. Like, it's just amazing to me that we've gotten to a point where it's like that, where, you're on two sides of a coin rather than a million different points on a sphere. And I don't know, why in the hell would you want to do this? Like, this isn't the best thing for Eli. This isn't the best thing for your family. This sure as hell isn't the best thing for your business. So why even take the risk?
No, I appreciate you bringing that up, and because it's not about me, that's why. Because, I was raised to understand that this isn't about you. And so that's one of the reasons I joined the Navy. I dropped out of school my senior year in college at the University of Arizona, a couple miles down the road, to join the Navy and try and become a SEAL, because I knew it wasn't about me. And because I knew that if I wanted to see others enjoy this, what I would consider a blessing to live in the United States of America, I knew that it didn't just come freely. I mean, I know we say that, and we say it ad nauseum. We say freedom isn't free. And it's become so sloganized that I think it's lost a lot of its meaning, but there's a lot of truth to that. And that, Ronald Reagan said a long time ago, he said, freedom is always one generation away from extinction. And if we look back over history, over the course of mankind, what we have here, this experiment, it's not really normal. Typically what people do is they get into power and then they try and, balance the scales in a way to where they take power and freedom and resources from other people and selfishly, use it for their own good. It was very rare to have a group of leaders like we did, our founders, after they, basically defeated the British, and then try and create a government, a republic, that was of, for, and by the people. It was where we had the power. It was so unique. And so I understood that, for this unique experiment to continue to go, you were going to need continually people to fight for it, because it goes against human nature. Human nature as leaders, because I think that many of us, I think that we're all born sinful. And I think most of us are greedy. Most of us are selfish, myself included. I think our natural desire or bent as human beings is to be greedy and selfish and try and take. And so I think that to balance that and to keep this experiment going, it takes, good men who are willing to stand up, throw it all on the line to make sure that the next generation can enjoy it and reap the benefit of opportunity and freedom. And I have kids, I have a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old, and I want to make sure that they have an opportunity to enjoy some of the freedoms that you and I grew up with. And that's why.
That's awesome, dude. Good for you. And good for us that there are people like you that see it that way. And that's really what the experiment requires, right? Is people who are willing to sacrifice for everyone else. You've already done it. You've already given more than anyone could ask of you. And here you are trying to give more still. And I commend you so much for that, because it's scary to say, okay, everything's going good right now. I'm going to extend myself out here so that I can spread that good out to other people in a way that's going to be bad for me. Freaking good on you, dude.
One of the encouraging thing too, James, is that it's not just me. You have, I think there's 7 SEALs running right now, and you have, I think, at least 3 SF guys. And I want to see that list grow, man. I want to see some Marine MARSOC guys, some tank commanders, I want to see more veterans get involved. And I want to qualify that by saying, just because you were a veteran doesn't mean that you're not just as susceptible to corruption or stupidity or ignorance. But I will say this, and I believe this is the truth. If you were willing to die for it, it makes it harder for you to sell it out. And I think so much of what we see going on with our country is people who are just willing to sell it out for their own good. That selfishness that I was just talking about. Hey, James, all you have to do is vote with us over here, buddy. And then, on the back end, I've got a cushy lobbying job. You will never have to work another day in your life, or, whatever those, deals or, backhanded corruption looks like. And it's just like, I think we need more men and women who are willing to die for it, because again, I think it makes it harder to sell it out when you were willing to die for it at one time.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know there's going to be people listening to this that are like, wait, he's talking about filling Congress with all these war fighters. And there's going to be people that think that means, okay, these are people who look to war as the first answer, as the solution to many problems. Nothing can be farther from the truth.
Right.
Because people who have been there, who have had other people on foreign soil try to kill them, and have had to, in some cases, kill those people in return, right? That's a bad thing. We don't want that. And the people who have been there and done that will do everything to avoid it. And I would say much more so than the people who have not been there.
I agree.
So if that's the fear, that, hey, we can't have a bunch of veterans in there because they're going to look for war, I would say that the exact opposite is true.
I 100% agree with you. Like if you're just some bureaucrat in DC, who's never had to lay it on the line, who's never had anybody try to kill them or had to actually, kill the enemy. It's easy. It wouldn't be that hard to just say, you know what? Yeah, let's go attack these guys for whatever reason. But to your point, when you've actually lost friends in war and and you're still in contact with their family, and you know how their families are still grieving that loss and it never goes away. Again, it makes it harder to jump into, something kinetic where lives will be lost. And on top of it, it's not just American lives being lost, but American treasure as well. These wars that we've been engaged in, they cost a ton of money. And guess who's paying for that? The taxpayer. And it's not even like we're paying for it right now. We have $30 trillion in debt. We have $30 trillion in debt. And that's on the backs of our kids and our grandkids. And guess what they're doing in Washington, D.C. right now? They're trying to tack on another 3.5 trillion right now. And it's just like, it gets to the point where even the greatest experiment of all time, the United States of America, can only handle so much weight. And sooner or later, it will collapse too. And I feel like we're witnessing the beginning of that right now. And that, again, you asked the question, why? That's why, because I love this country. I love all the people that live here. And I want to make sure, maybe not make sure is probably not even the best way to say it. I want to do my part to make sure that the next generations get to experience it as well.
I want to talk about the number trillion a little bit, because that's been getting thrown out there more and more over the last few years. And as of late, these spending bills include trillions. We're talking about trillions in debt. So it's impossible to conceive the value of that number, but we can understand time a little bit. So a million seconds is like 11 days. Okay. A trillion seconds is over 31,000 years. So let's say we have this cool little printer, and every second, 1001, it prints off a dollar bill. Okay. It's going to take us 100,000 years for this printer to come up with enough money to pay for this one bill.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's too much money.
It is. And the sad thing is, I think what they're banking on, James, I think they're banking on our complacency as citizens, in that we're so tied up in Netflix and the fact that we've got things like Grubhub, and we can just call somebody and have them deliver whatever food we want to watch. And we're so prosperous and so free here in this country that most of us have just tuned out, and we just see this stuff. Oh, it's just politics as usual. It doesn't really matter. 1 year it's a Democrat in there, the next year it's a Republican, and it'll keep going on and on and on. And I don't think that enough people recognize these threats for what they are. And I don't think that, because we're so blessed, and we think that America is so robust that it couldn't possibly ever fold in on itself and collapse. And there's a reason that every great empire has sooner or later imploded, and most of them implode from within. And I think that's what's going on right here and right now. And it's another reason why I'm glad I come from a business community where you can't just print money. You have to make money, and then you have to be very wise and very smart with how you spend it. And I think we need more people that have owned small businesses, which I believe is the lifeblood of this country economically. I want to see more small business owners and more veterans get into leadership roles in our government, because again, if you've ever had to run a business, if you've ever had to sign a paycheck, if you've ever had to fire somebody or hire somebody, or understand that the decisions that you're making affect not only that employee, but their family, it makes you a lot more fiscally responsible. And I don't see a lot of fiscal responsibility with the leaders that we currently have.
I agree. And I want to talk about war fighting a little bit more, because there's another side to this. And that is, if you have somebody who's been there and done it, they're going to look for every other solution first. But when it comes time to fight, they're going to be the ones that know how to do it and what to support throughout that process. Where I was deployed in Afghanistan, and during the time that I was there, which was 2012, 2013, President Obama was in office, and he very much wanted to, end the war. Like, as a president, that would have been a good thing for him to kind of hang his hat on, for one thing. And who wouldn't want to end that conflict? Right. But what he was working, the strategy was to draw down and to give fewer resources and fewer resources. So for several months, my tank unit didn't have food. Okay. We didn't have the very basic things that we needed to be able to accomplish our mission. When I was building up my platoon to train to go to war, we didn't have enough money for fuel for the tanks to be able to train. I went out to the golf course on Camp Lejeune and I rented golf carts, and we turned golf carts into tanks and had Marines throwing golf balls at each other so that we could practice formations and fire commands. This should never freaking happen. That's unacceptable. That if you put somebody in a place where they're putting their life on the line in order to accomplish the nation's mission, they need to have the resources to be able to do it. And one of the major things that Congress does is it sets budgets and it allocates funds for these different projects. And gosh, we need people in there who know where that money needs to go and how much of it is required in order to accomplish that task.
I can't agree with you more. I remember during the same time frame, right around the same time frame you just mentioned, I was at NSW TRADET. That's the command that trains SEALs. It was NSW Group 1, so it was the command that trains SEALs on the West Coast. And I remember talking to some of the leadership there, and they were telling me how much their budget had been drawn down, and watching these guys try and allocate and make sure that the training was as good as it could possibly be, but knowing that the guys going downrange to do some of the toughest missions we have, were working with far less than what they had in the past. And it's kind of frustrating and to see that type of thing happen, knowing what these guys are going to be facing downrange. And so I completely agree with you. And I think it definitely helps when you have men and women who have been there, been in theater, been in combat, been in units where they understand warfare, how it works, so that they can make sure that, the next generation of warfighter won't be kind of hung out to dry like that, driving golf carts around, throwing golf balls at each other.
We had a blast doing that, by the way. But, and that goes back into that creativity bit, right? So it would have been easy for me to say, okay, we don't have fuel, we can't train. It is what it is. But it's like, okay, what can we do? Well, I can afford to go rent 4 golf carts. So let's go try that. And it helped. We did very, very well. And it was because of that creativity and fostering an initiative for creativity amongst my guys as well, so that when they came up against something where they didn't have the resources that they thought that they needed, that they would get creative and how to get those resources. And to be completely honest, there are times that they came up with that resource and I did not want to know how, but that's getting it done. And you find that all over the military, people that figure it out.
Talked about expectation management earlier in the podcast, and I got to imagine being an officer in charge of Marines, that's got to be an expectation. Sometimes the boys are going to figure something out and you just don't want to know how they did it.
Yep. But I'm still proud of the little savages.
Are they teaching that in the academies, James, or the ROTC programs?
The creativity aspect?
No, the management, especially when you want to lead Marines, that, hey, sometimes you just don't ask.
I think that's more of the on-the-job training aspect of it. I was very idealistic coming into the military, and that was my reason for doing it. It's like, hey, I'm going to be able to make the difference, and my sacrifice is going to matter. And recently, we've all, as a community, had to come to grips with the reality that maybe it didn't in all the ways that we imagined that it would have. And watching Afghanistan fall to the state that it did, that was and continues to be incredibly difficult. We paid attention nationally longer than I thought we would, honestly. And it's over now. Like, it's no longer in the news cycles. It's like, nah, we don't care. And we won't care again until the Taliban or whatever replaces them rears up and bites us or one of our friends again
Right.
which is inevitable. But yeah, it's over. Like 20 years of warfare, 2 months later, yeah, moving on.
Yeah, it's the whole thing is unfortunate, and I think I think it was hard for many of us to watch, especially because anybody with any common sense, could have said, why are we doing it that? I mean, we all knew that pulling out was inevitable and what needed to happen, but watching it go down the way it did, I feel like I could have gotten a classroom, a focus group of 12-year-olds together and been like, okay, this is the situation. This is the mission. This is what we're up against. How do you guys think we should do this? And I guarantee they would have come up with a more rational plan than we did. And it's so frustrating to watch. But going back to the thing I keep harping on, expectation management, when I saw this group get in there, I was expecting a huge cluster across the board, not just in Afghanistan, but everywhere else. And I believe that's if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, that's what you're watching go down. And so, I guess that's what we deserve.
I hope not. But it's what we have. And you can bemoan the situation and wish that it was otherwise, but that changes nothing.
Right.
And that's what led you to the place that you're in. Talk to me about Bottle Breacher a little bit. What's cracking down there?
Yeah, well, let's see what is cracking down here. We're just doing our thing. We're in full prep mode for Christmas. We do about 40% of our business in the last 3 to 4 months of the year, and huge Christmas gifts. So if people want to buy Christmas gifts for their dad, their brother, their son, their uncle, cousin, whatever. Here's the bottom line. If you don't own a Bottle Breacher, first of all, correct yourself. Maybe go get wet and sandy, do 20 push-ups out. But most people have never held a 50 cal round in their hand. And it's one of the oldest rounds that we've used in the military. We've used it for over a century. And so it's about 5.5 inches long. It's a real 50 cal round. It's just inert. It no longer shoots. It's got no primer, no powder. It opens your beer. You can put your name on it. You can put a bunch of logos on it because we have a bunch of laser engravers. And what I found is, James, one of the reasons this product and our products have been so successful is because guys never really grow up. We just get cooler toys. And, you give a guy a Bottle Breacher and then watch him open his beer with it. And it's like, it's like giving a little kid, his first toy car. I mean, he carries it around, he puts it in his pocket, and, he shows all of his friends. So it's just a cool gift. And that's really the industry that we're in, is the gift giving industry. And, something that people are, from the beginning of time until, you and I are long gone, people will still be doing is, wanting to, show their love and appreciation and gratitude to somebody else. And so, we just give, our customers a unique way to do that.
Yeah, I think it's neat. It's how I like to open beers for sure. And of course, I love the 50 cal. I'm a big fan. You've got We the People tattooed on you. I've got 50 cals tattooed on me. We it's a deep connection. And we started this episode talking about love and talking about fraternity. I can't even remember the book. It's like a love languages book or something, but my love language is giving people things. That's what makes me feel really happy. And that's how I show people that I love them, is by giving them things. And I think that this is a great example of a way to do that. And I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, that's a great book. I don't know what the demographics of your podcast base is, but for all you guys out there, if you've never read that book, the love languages, the 5 love languages, it'll really help you out with your significant other if you can figure out what it is that makes them tick. I think there's affirmation, gifts, there's quality time, affection, touch. If you figure that out, it'll go a long way in how to support and improve your relationship,
which is important.
Very important. Very important.
Yeah. How's your family doing with all this chaos and sort of understanding that over the next year that there's going to be a tidal wave of chaos that they've never experienced before?
Yeah, I think that for the circumstance, I think that we're doing pretty well. And I'm grateful in a way that this isn't the first storm my family has faced professionally. Like most people, it's hard to change careers at 35 years old and go into something completely different. And that's what my family went through when I got out of the Navy and we started Bottle Breacher. And then, mom and dad were completely inundated in, trying to figure out how to get this company up and running so that we could provide, and not just provide paycheck to paycheck, but for our kids' futures. And so my kids have witnessed and watched a lot of sacrifice over, the course of their lives. They're getting to watch some more right now. And as a dad, I'm just hoping and praying that my kids understand that, one, that life isn't about them, but I want them to recognize the example that me and their mom have tried to set for them, and that you can't be everywhere at once. Life isn't about you. And if you try and incorporate mission into your life, you will live a much more fulfilled life. And I think, my kids are like everybody else's kids. They want to have fun. They want to have a good time. And I think as we're young, it takes a while to beat that selfishness out of us. And just, it takes time to realize that this life isn't about us. But my family's doing good with it. My wife is so used to living an unconventional life with me that I think it's just become second nature for her. And she's phenomenal at supporting me and, just taking care of our girls. And, my wife is probably the hardest working person I've ever met in my life, to the point where it's kind of annoying, where you're like, hey, why don't you go ahead and sit down? Aren't you? You're making the rest of us feel lazy, and I can't relax when you're, constantly, being a busybody over here. But she's just an amazing woman, and I think that's one of the only reasons I can do the things that I do, is because I recognize that I'm so weak in so many areas, and if I don't have strong people, over here on the couch, you guys can't see him. Actually, I'm gonna let you guys see this guy over here. Pat, wave.
What's up, Pat?
That's my campaign manager, Pat. He's really strong in a lot of areas that I'm really weak in. And without Pat and without the rest of my team, I couldn't be doing what I'm doing now. And without my family and my girls, I just love having kids sometimes, man. You'll be like so caught up in the moment of what you got to do today. And my little daughter will walk up and say that, the most simple but profound thing in the world. And it'll just make me laugh. And, oh man, being a family man has been so helpful to me, and not only reminding me that this isn't about me, but they also, just the amount of love that they show me that I'm able to give to them, it really, puts things back in perspective every single day, that there are bigger things in life to, running a business, being in the military, and even running for office.
Good for you. Good for all of us.
The funny thing, James, I will say this, dude. The funny thing is about this whole run for Congress, dude. I thought I've always, when I was hanging out with you, I got to hang out with you for the first time, I think in Wyoming or Montana, wherever the hell we were at with Sig. And I was like, dude, this is going to be my year. It's going to be my year, dude. I'm going to do some hunting this year, and then, I start headed down, the wrong path towards politics, man. And so I'm gonna have to put that on the back burner again. But one of these days, bro, I'm coming, and we're gonna go shoot an elk, dude. It's gonna be awesome.
Good. I'll catch you on that one, and I look forward to it. And hopefully, I haven't been dragged down the road that you're on in the meantime.
Well, I kind of hope you are, man. Like I said, we need more men and women of character that were willing to die for it, so they don't sell it out so easily.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you, dude. I appreciate your time. Appreciate your sacrifice. And I wish you all the luck in the world. All the luck in the world.
You, brother. I appreciate it.
All right.
October, November, December, they're just the best months out of the year, right? Whether it's for work or hunting or fishing, the holidays, spending time with your family, just it's awesome, right? And we've got some nice cold mornings now, and you get to go out and have a warm drink in the duck blind or out on the hillside where you're glassing for mule deer or elk, or sitting in a tree stand waiting for a whitetail to come past. Or you're working on the job site and you get to take a break and have some nice warm coffee waiting for you. It's pretty nice. Having a cold drink at the end of the day, that makes everything a little bit better too. My favorite Stanley item right now is the 14-ounce titanium travel mug. It's super lightweight because it's made out of titanium, so I'm willing to take it with me when I'm hunting, throw it in my pack. Fits in every cup holder out there, and it just seems to be the right amount of coffee. I like it. It's a really cool item, and it fits a niche that I didn't have filled in like any of my other drinkware categories, I guess. If you're looking for a Christmas present for somebody or just a gift that you want to help them out with, I recommend this because it's pretty cool and it's something that they don't have already. The way most discount codes work, completely honest, is if you use it, then whoever gave you that code gets a kickback. Now, I'm not a salesman, and I want nothing to do with that. So I'm going to pass along to you a discount code that Stanley gave me because they're great supporters of this podcast and they're great supporters of this audience, which I love. So if you use the discount code 6ranch, the number 6, the word ranch, you'll get 25% off anything you order from stanley1913.com. I get nothing back from that. I don't want anything. I just want to pass along some savings to you and save you a little bit of money and get you connected with this great company that makes really great products. And as we move through fall and get into winter and the holidays, just hope everybody's doing well and having a good time and that you get to get out there and connect with nature and connect with your friends and family and have a nice warm drink while you're doing it.
We're living in interesting times. If you go to the grocery store right now, you might not be able to find beef or pork or chicken or pet food or toilet paper. And buying beef from a ranch has always been tough because most people don't have enough freezer space or they don't know a rancher or don't live near one. The 6 Ranch is solving that for you. This year, we only have 8 spots left in our Grassroots Beef Club, and it works like this. The first week of every month, we ship you a cooler full of all-natural grass-fed Coriani steaks, roasts, and burger from December until May. And being a member in this club also gets you an invite to come tour the 6 Ranch during calving season in May and stay for a hosted dinner. Deliveries are available to Oregon, Washington, California, parts of Idaho, and Nevada. Now, this ranch has been in my family since 1884. It's one of the oldest businesses in the state of Oregon. We raise our cattle ethically and use traditional cowboy practices blended with modern grazing techniques. We also put a huge amount of work into wildlife conservation for species like mule deer, salmon, steelhead, rainbow trout, upland bird species. This is healthy beef that you can feel good about eating. Learn more about the 6 Ranch and get one of the last shares available at 6ranch.com. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share the show with a friend. You can also rate the podcast and leave a review. Your support allows me to keep doing what I love, which is meeting incredible folks and sharing their stories with you. For more content and photos, follow the show on Instagram at 6 Ranch Podcast or me at 6 Ranch Outfitters. This episode was produced by Emily Brannigan, with original music written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the 6 Ranch Podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Christofferson. Tune in every Monday for a brand new episode of the 6 Ranch Podcast. I'll catch you next week.